Stevie J from Glove Up or Shut Up at AngryMarks.com coming at you once again with the UFC on Fox 5 recap, Henderson versus Diaz. Every single fight aired on TV tonight, including the lone Facebook fight. So it was about 6 hours of fighting in total, and I'm a little bit bushwhacked from that, but I recapped it all, and now I'm going to share some thoughts from that recap with you. The first televised fight on FX was Nam Phan versus Dennis Seaver. This was a featherweight bout, although Seaver didn't look like a featherweight. He looked like a lightweight or maybe a welterweight. He was definitely the bigger man there in the cage, and it showed because he pretty much did anything to Phan that he wanted to, especially in the first round. He was just throwing strikes, spinning kicks, head kicks, just doing what he damn well pleased. In fact, the scores ended up being so lopsided by the end of 3 rounds of this. It was 30-24, 30-25, and 30-26. Now, I thought the most dominant rounds were either the first or the second. You could have given one of those a 10-8, but really, how could you give all three of those a 10-8? I just don't see it. But that's wacky judging for you. Next up, we had Marcus Levasseur versus Abel Killer Trujillo. And kind of an interesting story with this one because originally Levasseur was supposed to fight Chiesa, and that fight got scratched. And originally Trujillo was supposed to fight Means, and he slipped getting out of the sauna and hit his head. So these two ended up together in the same fight. And Levasseur was trying to work takedowns since he's a collegiate wrestler, undefeated as a collegiate wrestler, in fact, but it was not working here. Trujillo was just picking apart every attempt and hitting him, and it was kind of surprising how easily he was stuffing those takedowns. And then in the second round, Trujillo rocked him and knocked him down about a minute 10 into the fight. And Trujillo was up 30-1 on ground strikes at one point, which should tell you how one-sided this was. And finally, when Trujillo ended up on top late in the round, the referee stepped in and saved him because he was just taking knees to the body over and over again and wasn't able to defend himself. So the winner by TKO at 3:56 of the second round was Killer Trujillo. Darren Cruikshank and Henry Martinez had one for the highlight reels because Cruikshank was just viciously beating him up in round one. Then in the second round, Cruikshank just unloaded with a right kick that knocked him out. The official time ended up being 2:57 of the second round. He got a post-fight interview and said, "Henry's a tough guy, there are no pushovers, and I can't underestimate anyone they put against me." Well, you certainly couldn't, and Martinez, for his part, was very game in round one. He got the tar and feather beat out of him, but kept on coming. It was a little like a Korean Zombie performance, except he wasn't nearly as skilled as the Korean Zombie. Cruikshank gets one for the highlight reels here, and if you can see this on a replay on Fuel TV, you should definitely go out of your way to. Joe Proctor and Ramsey Ninjum in a lightweight bout. Anyway, Ninjum was just doing takedowns, and Proctor looked for submissions he couldn't get. Ninjum would hold him off, and basically he just rode out a decision, 30-27, 29-28, 29-28. That one had more action than a Sun Tzu and Mike Easton, though, because this was a tale of two guys doing almost nothing and a Sun Tzu doing a little more than nothing. So the guy who did a little more than nothing got the decision, 29-28 and 30-27 times 2. The crowd was booing the decision, too. They were as bored by this fight as I was. At least they weren't bored by the main event of the FX fights. That was Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens versus Eve Thugjitsu Edwards, and Thugjitsu ended it with one shot. He actually had a little bit of ground and pound after that, but it was really academic. Rogan called it unquestionably the hardest and cleanest shot anybody's ever landed on Jeremy Stevens, and you have to agree with that. It was just a right hand of doom. He threw it straight to the jaw as a counter shot as Stevens was trying to clock him, and then he threw some elbows on the ground, but as I mentioned, they were already academic at that point because Stevens was down and out. The official time was 1:55 of the second round for the winner by knockout. Then as a bonus, with about 10 minutes left to go on the FX card, we got the Scott Jorgensen and John Albert fight. And this one was pretty funny because it looked like Albert might have had a couple of good chances to get a submission. He even went for a reverse triangle, but Jorgensen wound up getting his back with 13 seconds left to go and got a rear naked choke and tapped him out right as the round expired. I mean, like 4:59 or 5 minutes, depending on how you decided to stop your stopwatch. They officially ruled it 4:59 of the first round, but I swear to God, it was right at the buzzer. Goldberg told us that the last time this happened was when Matt Hughes got an armbar on George St. Pierre. First fight of TV was Mike Quick-Swick versus Immortal Matt Brown. Brown just out-muscled him, outstruck him, outworked him, out everything. And then in the second round, for good measure, he knocked him out. 2:31 of the second round for the Immortal Matt Brown. BJ Penn and Rory McDonald went the full 15 minutes. And I don't know how, because Penn was getting hurt more and more as this fight went on. In the second round, he took a horrific beating. 2:10 left in the second round. He was just hoping to survive. His left eye was swelling shut, and McDonald was just punching the crap out of him. Rogan called it target practice. It kind of felt like that, too. Penn tried to turn around in the third round by getting a single leg, but McDonald hopped out of it and just kept on wailing on him. He was up 100-1 and 26 on significant strikes, so there was really no chance for Penn here. The final scores were 30-26, 30-26, and 30-27. McDonald won by unanimous decision and immediately called out Carlos Condit, saying he wanted a rematch. In a light heavyweight bout, Alexander Gustafsson took on Shogun Rua. He was facing a taller man, a bigger man, and he had one power punch, and maybe he could hope to knock him down and or get him into a submission, but it just wasn't going that way because Gustafsson used his reach, threw leg kicks. Shogun started to gas out in the third round, which is what he usually does, and Gustafsson cruised to the 30-27, 30-27, and 30-26 decision. Our main event was also the full distance, except this was 5 rounds instead of 3. And again, this was a tale of one fighter looking worse and worse as the fight wore on. Nate Diaz, his face was getting bruised up pretty badly, and Henderson was kicking the crap out of his right leg to the point where Diaz would hobble on it when he'd try to step forward to throw a punch. And then just for good measure, Henderson was actually punching the knee, punching the calf. It's the first time I've ever seen a fighter specifically punch somebody's leg or knee. And even Rogan noticed this on commentary, but if it works, do it. And it was clearly working. Diaz was unable to get anything going. His best round was the third, where he was trying for a couple of submissions, but I keep calling Henderson Gumby for a reason. He can bend any which way, and you can't make anything happen to him. His legs are flexible, his arms are flexible, his neck is flexible. You just can't submit this dude. It just doesn't happen. So Diaz tried and failed and tried and failed, and then for the last 2 rounds, Henderson just whooped his ass. He got the unanimous decision, 50-43 and 2 50-45s, and that was it for UFC on Fox 5. Thanks for checking out the video. I'm Stevie J.